Welcome to the Bamboo Method, investing in the unseen. They say good things come to those who wait, but in today's convenience-driven world, we live in a culture that is constantly pulling us towards immediacy. Fast food, two-day shipping, and overnight success stories, it seems more difficult than ever to stick it out and wait. The reality is, anything worth building usually takes time. Success doesn't come at an instant. So we're here to ask, what are the things worth putting in the time and investing in, even if we don't see the results for a long time? Today's guest is Ted Kim, and if you've been around the art scene in Billings, Montana, chances are you know Ted. He's a staple in the creative community and is known for his enthusiasm, his generosity, his jokes and stories, as we like to call them, TED Talks, not to mention his wealth of knowledge and experience. Ted grew up in New York, studied in Chicago, and went to grad school for film at Columbia University. He spent his early career producing for networks in LA and international news in New York. But after a life-changing bike accident, Ted came to Billings, Montana, where he leveraged his large market experience to create Billings Open Studio, a downtown production space and creative hub for photographers and videographers. But BOS is more than just a place to take photos and videos. It's an incubator for creativity and community. We've used Ted for many of our own productions, and if you've seen any of our work and thought it looked good, you can thank Ted for that, whether that was him working directly on set or all the knowledge we've learned from him over the years. Ted, thanks for being here.
Of course, thanks for asking.
Absolutely. Excited to chat with you. So our first question for you is, personally, what in your life, we talk about nurturing, investing in things that take time. What have you put effort towards, maybe consistently, days, weeks, months, that you didn't see fruit for over a period of time, but you kept doing it? Could be something you're doing now that you believe in, could be something in the past.
Well, this is kind of a lifelong thing. My father, for better or worse, was an academic in good and bad ways. And, his whole idea was people should not pursue jobs to make money. What you should do is learn about the world, life, knowledge. The pursuit of knowledge was its own. And so, for me, I've always just loved reading and thinking about things. Yeah. And, the political situation recently has been crazy. And that's been something that's been fascinating to me. And the end of the Cold War, like the history and all of this, which has nothing to do with my professional life. But,
sure.
I just love putting historical events into context, I guess, and seeing how these things fit together and possibly how it plays out.
Yeah. So would you say the consistent thing you're doing, the nurturing, if you will, is it learning? Is it gaining more information? Is it reading? What would you say that the act is?
Okay, so not to get too abstract here, but my view of human knowledge is that it's basically patterns, that we spend our whole lives learning patterns. Mathematics, algebra, biology, it's all patterns, learning how to make a marriage work. It's like, how do your patterns of behavior fit with this other person's patterns, and then create new patterns. And you have your kids, and they represent a whole new set of independent patterns, which you have literally no control over, right? They grow their own way. And so, as far as my recent life, it's been trying to understand, how these patterns in my life have played out. And as I enter my retirement, like how I'm going to use those learned behaviors and improve on them or enjoy them or whatever. Maybe I'm going a little off track here, but my idea of happiness or contentment is that you're going to be happy as long as you have two good options in your life, and you don't need money to be there at that position. In fact, what money does is money gives you more options.
Sure.
But if you're bad at making decisions, you're still going to end up in a bad place, right?
Yeah.
So, it's the idea of delayed gratification, that you have this goal and you're willing to delay immediate gratification to put yourself in a position where you'll have two good choices.
Yeah.
And, one of the signs of immaturity is immediate gratification. And so you say, I want that, you get it, you're in debt, but you don't have a second option.
Yep.
You haven't delayed that gratification to give yourself that out at a later point in life.
Yep.
And in a certain way, you can call that wisdom.
Yeah.
It's always making decisions so that you have this choice, this alternate good enough choice. So you'll be happy, right?
I love the idea of delayed gratification and your picture of that. What is that for you?
Well, I think it's not just a professional or specific idea. It's simply taking a step back and saying, okay, before I make this decision, before I commit myself to this, what are my alternatives? How could this possibly play out in the future? And it's just a rule of thumb of living your life, and it's not like a specific thing, such as if we schedule this scene for Wednesday and it rains, what do we do? That of course you have to make that decision eventually, right? Hopefully sooner than later. But just as a principle, like is this project something which I really need to do now, or is there an alternative?
Sure.
And so this is something which I think a lot of people have trouble with when they're younger. Because you see something which you think is going to make you happy, and it may not in the long run. And so the whole idea of taking a step back and asking yourself, is this the best choice I can make at this point? And then what's the price I pay? And what's the payoff down the line? And that's a really hard decision to make, because in a lot of ways that goes against biological evolution over a million years. It's like you're hungry, you eat that, but maybe if you plant it, so it's maturity, and it depends on, I think, a lot of people's personalities, how long it takes for them to learn.
Do you have any? I love that. Either you eat it or you plant it.
Right.
Do you have anything in your life personally that you consistently chose to plant so that later you could eat it?
I'm not a planter. I'm an eater. Yeah. That's been the main problem. Like, oh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that.
Yeah.
Credit card here.
Aren't we all?
So yeah, it's something which I learned later in life, unfortunately.
What were some of those catalysts for the change in perspective from realizing, oh, I'm an eater?
So when I was in LA, I had an accident, right? So a bicycle accident, and I broke 10 vertebrae and punctured lung, broken collarbone, suffered a head trauma. I mean, it was pretty horrific.
Yeah.
And the only thought in the hospital that I had, because I thought I was going to die, was, oh Lord, please let me see my friends and family once more before I pass.
Yeah.
And it became a very simple and clear thing. What was important, what's not.
Yeah.
Family and friends.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see them one more time. And the idea of, the TV projects, this and that, it's like, who cared?
Yeah.
It literally did not come into my mind at all. And so, that stayed with me. And, there's nothing like a life and death experience to clear your head about what's important and what's not. And so, being here in Billings definitely gave me a chance to kind of rebuild my value system in a very positive way. And, once you've had that experience, everything else is kind of insignificant.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a powerful experience.
Yeah, I'm not saying that everyone should have it, but when something like that does happen to you, for better or worse, it is life-changing.
Yeah, and you got much more than that.
Yeah. Well, since then, I felt like I've just been in bonus time.
Yeah, wow.
I'm just so lucky to be here and savor every moment.
Yeah. What a cool perspective. So shifting to professionally, which I know you're transitioning out of that type of role and perspective, but what in your professional life did you continue to foster with patience, knowing that eventually it was going to produce results?
Well, I think, getting back to my theory of patterns is your savings account of patterns that you've accumulated. It's going to be helpful no matter what you do, whether you're a writer, director, producer. You draw on all of these different experiences that you've noticed, and it informs your view of the world. It informs your solutions to the problems you face, and it informs how you interact with other people. Because even if you're friends and you're working on a shoot together, you're going to have different ideas, even slight differences about how you want the scene to play out, how you shoot it, and knowing the other person's patterns helps you negotiate that, right? And I think a lot of it is in life realizing that your pattern of how you perceive things may not always be the most important.
Sure.
And that you have to, especially as a creative person, learn to compromise what you want and how you see things with other people's life experiences and to give equal credence. That said, a lot of the greatest directors in the world have been incredible narcissists who do the exact opposite. So take that with a grain of salt. Yeah. But as far as, I'm concerned, TV, film, it's a team concept. And so learning how other people see the project, learning how other people want to execute and solve, these problems, and giving them a chance to do it without, So James Seamus, my producing teacher, he had so many great aphorisms and insights about the business. And one of the things he said was, as a producer, you never want to tell your director no. What you want to tell your director is, we can do it, but you've got to give this up. And so what you're doing there is giving the director the burden of making that decision, and you're not the bad guy.
Yeah,
right?
I'm pretty sure I've heard you say that to me a number of times.
Yeah. And it's something which carries over to basically anything in life.
Yeah.
Talking to kids, talking to your life partner, whatever. It's like, yeah, we can do that, but we've got to give this up.
Yeah.
And that's really a fascinating way of making decisions, because the opposite, which is much more prevalent, is saying, no, we don't have the money. And it's so much more positive to say, well, we can do it, but we've got to give up half the scenes that you like. And then, it's a win-win, right? Because they realize the situation and you haven't alienated them. And then when you, do come to a decision, you're starting from a point of compromise to begin with.
Yeah. There's a definite theme with you around just the people component to how you operate. That's, I know, what I've experienced. And I'm curious how that developed, especially coming from a scene where you said you were around a lot of narcissists and difficult people.
That was LA. So
well, yeah. So but you were ingrained in this culture, right? That was very cutthroat, get me to the top, narcissistic. And I could easily see someone from that, if you come to Podunk, Little Town Billings, and that's your experience, you could just be like, guys, I'm the big man on town now, and I know what I know, so like, give me some space.
Well, you have to realize that my Hollywood producing years was just 2 years of my life. The vast majority of my life, professionally, it was in New York, being a penniless writer, director, wannabe. And so, in film school, especially at Columbia, it starts with teamwork.
Sure.
You're assigned a group of people and you work together as a group. Everything is team oriented. A film set, it's all about teamwork.
Yeah.
And so you have to find people that you work well with. And so one of the fascinating things about New York City, and it wouldn't work here because there's just not enough industry to support it, but in a bigger city, the dynamic is that you have these low budget film students, and they have their thesis films or whatever projects to do. They don't have much money, super low budget, no budget production. But what they do is they will bring on key positions like, gaffers, film set people, DPs, and you will pay them a small amount. And what happens is that the DPs or the gaffers, they'll take on these no budget or low budget jobs, because they will be hired to work at a job description one step higher. So a gaffer who wants to be a DP will be hired as a DP.
Okay.
And they may very well be excellent, and so what they do then is they bring on their key grip, and they build a team. And the key grips won't get paid oftentimes. But that gaffer / DP, when they do get a commercial gig, they'll hire that key grip.
Yeah.
And so you have these relationships built up where you can get crews, professional union crews that basically work for free. And so the environment there is all about building teams. If you have a reputation as a jerk, you're going to have a very hard time getting people to work for you, right? So, you learn very quickly it's about cultivating relationships and treating people well. Yeah. And, there's a multi-billion-dollar industry built around people helping each other for free, at the bottom level.
Yeah, that's cool. You talk a lot about like the patterns that you're observing. What patterns are most important to you?
Oh gosh, I think the knowing thyself. You go back to the Greek philosophers, and they had a lot of wisdom, believe it or not, for a society without the internet. So knowing yourself, knowing why you do things, and how you can become better. Yeah. What mistakes are you making? What makes you unhappy? And how to stop yourself from those patterns. And learning as you grow up, like which are good for you and which are bad for you. Patterns which are good for some people may not be good for others, right? And so learning who you are and what patterns help you, make you happy, and what other patterns you don't need and are destructive, right? And so that is, to me, like wisdom is learning yourself. And from that, you're able to make other people happy.
How do you learn more about yourself? How have you discovered yourself? What patterns are good? What patterns are bad? And it's easy to say like, oh, what feels most natural. Sometimes what feels most natural doesn't mean it's, that's the eating. Eating feels natural, right? But maybe needed to plant it. So kind of putting all that into one question of how have you discovered yourself, what patterns to...
That's a really good question.
To follow and who you are.
Yeah. I mean,
That's not destructive,
Right. I mean, one of the dangers of being too much of a planner is that you're never happy because you're constantly putting off any form of gratification. If you feel happy, you feel guilty. Yeah. Right. So, there is that middle ground. And so I think rephrasing your question is, where is that middle ground?
Middle ground.
And, for me, it comes down to one basic principle, which is if you think there's an important decision to be made, sleep on it. Don't make a decision when you first confront it. Sleep on it, and then more often than not, it'll come to you. Yeah. And, maybe if it doesn't, ask a friend. A lot of times, what you think makes you happy will not make you happy. And you're your own worst enemy.
Yeah. When has that saved you from a bad decision?
Oh my gosh. My life is a series of bad decisions. So mind you, a lot of this is purely academic. my patterns, I think what I've learned the most from is seeing how my older sister and my friends make their decisions.
But was there a time that there was a decision that you were confronted with, and you're like, okay, I really want to do this, but I'm going to sleep on it, and then you went the other way?
Yeah, and that's a more recent thing. And by recent, I mean the past few years. Yeah. Deciding to leave the business, the studio, and leave photography, and retire, as it were. My initial reaction was no. Yeah. Why would I want to do that? Yeah. There's still so much more that I want to do. But then I thought about it, and the more I thought about it, the more I was like, it's not going to make me happy. I mean, with the limited time I have, I've kind of gotten most of the good experiences I could have gotten from that part of my life. And now it's time to, step into a new chapter. And that makes sense. Don't be afraid of the unknown. Yeah. And so, that was a pivotal moment. It was like, okay, let go of the fear and just, life is short. Yeah.
Hey everyone, Wade here. Before we get to the final question, if you like the show so far and want to hear more, you can support the Bamboo Method on Patreon. There you can listen to the full director's cut of this conversation and help make this show possible.
At the end of that shoot, we're shooting at a nightclub, and it was like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., and this very large homeless dude, reeking of alcohol, comes up and he wants to use the bathroom in this nightclub. And I said, let him in. And so he's in there for like 40 minutes. So I knock on the door, and the guy walks out. And I look in, and there's this mound of stuff inside the toilet. I mean, it's like peeking over. I can't imagine. It's like, how did that dude walk? And as everyone is celebrating and, doing whatever outside, I'm on my knees inside this nightclub bathroom with a garbage bag trying to scoop all of this stuff up. And I'm retching. I'm like,
gosh.
That taught me a lesson.
What lesson is that?
Common sense.
Well, that kind of transitions to the final question, which is, what are you nurturing, been investing in, that you want to stop? And that might come back to that decision.
No, that's such a good question, because it kind of loops around to who you were as a kid and your self-image as a kid, right?
Yep.
And so, for me, I had a problematic experience with my father, who was extremely judgmental and very overbearing. And so as a kid, I wanted to be a writer. But lo and behold, my father wanted to be a writer as well, and he would push me into writing. And my feelings towards him were so conflicted that it got confused, it got mixed in. Yeah. And so for me, writing emotionally was kind of tied in to my feelings about him. Yeah. And so, there was this long-held emotional block, right? I just refused to think of myself, admitting to myself that I want to be a writer. And so he may have been right. I don't know. As a kid, like kid meaning 18, 19, the college writing experience, I would always kind of feel bad because I hadn't experienced enough to write anything about. It's like, why would anything I've experienced be meaningful to someone else? And so now, after having lived, I worked as a TV news producer for 15 years in New York, and I've just covered revolutions. I've covered kidnappings in Bogota, Colombia, just the World Trade Center. So I've, all of these crazy experiences in my head that I like to work out and make sense of. And so that kind of loops around in a very non-ironic way to 13-year-old me not having anything to write about, and now I do. And it's my plan is kind of makes sense, because we interact with this world in terms of story, a narrative that otherwise it's just too complex to make sense of, right? And so we have stories that make us understand this world or help us understand this world. And so, it's time for me to kind of make sense of my life that way.
Yeah.
In terms of a story.
Yeah.
And meaning.
So you're going to start writing more?
Yeah. Yeah. I see myself on a beach somewhere in Southeast Asia with my computer and writing. The reality is probably going to be me falling asleep, partially clothed on a beach, drunk.
Maybe the first day.
I'll be like,
yeah.
But who knows? But that's the ideal.
So let me see if I understood you right. What you want to get rid of this burden of what your dad, what he viewed of you, or the
ironically
impression?
He passed
okay.
several years ago,
Yeah.
and in addition to my sorrow, there was a sense of freedom.
Okay.
And
so you feel like some of that's already been released?
Yeah.
But continue to release that to free you up to write. Is that what I'm hearing?
To free myself.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, it's a self-imposed prison, right?
It's up
so,
in here, right?
Yeah. And so, you feel this freedom to be you more and more as you get older, and you don't care as much about how you're perceived or whatever. You're more free to be you.
Yeah.
And so there's a sense of individual existence there, which may not have existed in that way when you're younger.
Mm-hmm. How do you go about attaining that freedom?
I think it's something that you do. It's not something that you can attain. Otherwise, I guess people do try to go to yoga retreats and all of that. But, in the end, the things which are driving me are, oddly enough, just basic human core values, which is treat people the way you would like to be treated, be kind, and be kind to yourself, forgive yourself, and give yourself time to become yourself. Because the more pressure you put on yourself to do and to become, it can get counterproductive.
Yeah, I like that. Well, I'm excited to hear more about your writing, and hopefully some of that gets put out into the world for others to read. Do you plan on having any sort of publication, whether it's a blog or
no? I don't really care about
writing. Is for you.
Yeah, I don't care about any. Yeah, but I will be starting a GoFundMe to get me out of prison.
Okay.
When and if that happens. So.
Well, you know where to go for that.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I appreciate that, Sam.
I think to conclude, you do have some plans. I'd love to can you paint a picture of what the next season of life looks like for you? I'm sure a lot of people already know, but maybe give a little bit of what you'd like to share of what's in the cards for Ted coming up.
It's interesting. My plan is to not have any plans. I'm going to be traveling, different places, Southeast Asia, Japan, Portugal, Italy, visiting friends, and just seeing where life takes you. And especially coming from a background where for 15 years I was a international TV news producer, where I was traveling half the month. I was literally sleeping with or going to work with a suitcase under my desk because I didn't know where I'd be sleeping that night. I was just constantly traveling.
Yeah.
So now I want to travel just for the sake of traveling. I had PTSD from airports. You would not imagine. So I just kind of want to see the world without having a news crew in tow and having this pressure to meet deadlines and all of that. Just explore the world.
What most excites you about all that?
Not having a schedule,
and
taking experiences day by day, and meeting people.
The lack of mental load you don't have to make a lot of decisions.
It's taken me like 4 months to come to terms with the fact that there isn't a purpose to my actions. That I don't need to have a plan for a payoff or some sort of end game, right? Life is what it is. It's letting go of things. And I think that of expectations, both, your own expectations and your expectations of what others expect of you. It's a very freeing place to be. Again, maybe that goes back to my near fatal accident where I do feel like I'm in bonus time right now.
Yeah.
Like every day is a blessing.
Yeah.
So if that ends, it ends. I've just had the most amazing 10 or 11 years.
That's the truth for everyone, right? Every day is a gift.
Yeah.
Isn't that true?
Yeah.
And what a good perspective to have to lower also some of the expectations that we put on ourselves. I think that's just something we all do, right? These expectations and pressure. And granted, the responsibilities for some are still there, where you're entering a stage of life where there's a lot less to be responsible for. You're just responsible for yourself.
Right.
What I love about the season of life that you're heading into is there was a guy on another podcast that just said, what are you doing that you would do anyways if no one knew? Like, if you couldn't tell anyone about it, would you still do it? And you're kind of entering into that where it's like, you're going to do a bunch of stuff that no one, it's like, it's not about people seeing. We just live in the age where it's like social media, publicity. It's like you do things to share. And so that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like, maybe I know that the purpose of doing those things isn't for other people, but maybe once it's done, you might be like, oh, actually other people might enjoy that. Yeah.
And I think different people, everyone grows up with expectations.
Yep.
And those expectations are more often than not fictitious.
There you can listen to the full director's cut of this conversation and help make this show possible. Thanks.
It's the foundation of real creativity.
Absolutely.
Right. And so, for a lot of very creative people, they're able to find their way at an early age to get in touch with that. Some of us, it takes decades longer.
Sure.
So,
well,
thanks for having me on, guys.
All the best to you for doing that, and
this is
excited
great
for your future. But
this is
being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Bamboo Method, Investing in the Unseen. Remember, anything worth building usually takes time. And here's a sneak peek from the next episode.
My parents really ingrained in us, not with words, but with how they treated us, like the responsibility they gave us, right? Like, I was checking cows at I'm not even kidding you, 5, 6, 7 on a little 4-wheeler. I'm out checking heifers in a corral, and my dad's like, don't go above gear 3. I'll hear you. And it's a 5, but I think of that now. I'm like, some people, they would never send their kid to do that, right? But I just knew having that responsibility, I'm like, okay, I have to be safe. I can't be, right? And don't judge, I'm sure there's judgment of why did he let his 5-year-old daughter do that? But, there was a trust and a responsibility given, and I didn't take that lightly, even at a really young age.